Okay, reading from the barbri of torts, starting on page 19, with regards to self-defense against intentional torts, and those include battery, assault, false imprisonment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, trespass to land, trespass to chattel, conversion, and self-defense is one of the defenses to these said intentional torts. The first one that went over was consent. Under self-defense, this is defined as when a person has reasonable grounds to believe that he is being or is about to be attacked. He may use such force as is reasonably necessary for protection against the potential injury. A. When is defense available? 1, 2, 3, and 4. Defense is available when there's a reasonable belief. Retaliation is not allowed. Retreat is not necessary, and not available to the aggressor. So those are just the titles of when the defense is available. 1. Reasonable belief. The actor need only have a reasonable belief as to the other party's actions. For example, apparent necessity, not actual necessity, is sufficient. Hence, reasonable mistake as to the existence of the danger does not vitiate the defense. Now, 2, retaliation not allowed. Self-defense is limited to the right to use force to prevent the commission of a tort. Thus, one may never use force in retaliation where there is no longer any threat of injury. And 3rd, retreat not necessary. A substantial majority of the courts hold that one need not attempt to escape, but may stand his ground, and even use deadly force when necessary to prevent death or serious bodily harm to himself. A growing modern trend would impose a duty to retreat before using deadly force where this can be done safely, unless the actor is in his own home. 4. Not available to aggressor. The initial aggressor is not privileged to defend himself against the other party's reasonable use of force in self-defense. However, if the other uses deadly force against an aggressor who had only used non-deadly force, the aggressor may defend himself with deadly force. B. Question under self-defense: how much force may be used? One may only use that force that reasonably appears to be necessary to prevent the harm. One may not use force likely to cause death or serious bodily injury unless he reasonably believes that he is in danger of serious bodily injury. If more force than necessary is used, the actor loses the privilege of self-defense. C. Extends to third-party injuries. If in the course of reasonably defending himself, one accidentally injures a bystander, he is nevertheless protected by the defense. He might, however, be liable to the bystander on a negligence theory if his conduct warranted it. If the actor deliberately injures a bystander in trying to protect himself, he probably cannot raise the privilege of self-defense. Now 3rd, defense of others. When is defense available? The actor need only have a reasonable belief that the person being aided would have the right of self-defense. Thus, even if the person aided has no defense, for example, if he were the initial aggressor, his defender is not liable as long as he reasonably believes that the person aided could have used force to protect himself. And the second question under defense of others is how much force may be used. The defender, assuming he is justified, may use as much force as he could have used in self-defense if the injury were threatened to him. Defense of property. 4. The fourth defense of intentional torts. When is defense available? Generally, one may use reasonable force to prevent the commission of a tort against her property. 1, 2, 3, and 4 examples when the defense is available. 1 being request to desist, usually required. 2, the effect of mistake. 3, limited to preventing commission of tort. So 1, when the defense is available, the request to desist usually required. A request to desist must precede the use of force unless the circumstances make it clear that the request would be futile or dangerous. 2, effective mistake. Reasonable mistake is allowed as to the property owner's right to use force in defense of property where the mistake involves whether an intrusion has occurred or whether a request to desist is required. However, mistake is not allowed where an entrant has a privilege to enter the property that supersedes the defense of property right. See 4 below. In such a case, the property owner is liable for mistakenly using force against a privileged entrant unless the entrant himself intentionally or negligently caused the mistake, for example, by refusing to tell the property owner the reason for the intrusion. 3, limited to preventing commission of tort. Defense of property is limited to preventing the commission of a tort against the defendant's property. Thus, once the defendant has been permanently dispossessed of the property and the commission of the tort is complete, she may not use force to recapture it. However, where one is in hot pursuit of someone who wrongfully dispossessed her of her property, the defense still operates because the other is viewed as still in the process of committing the tort against the property. And 4, superseded by other privileges. Whenever an actor has a privilege to enter upon the land of another because of necessity, right of re-entry, right to enter upon another's land to recapture chattels, etc., discussed below, that privilege supersedes the privilege of the land possessor to defend her property. So, necessity, right of re-entry, right to enter upon another's land to recapture chattels, etc., supersedes the privilege of the land possessor to defend her property. B, the question under defense of property, how much force may be used, is answered as one may use reasonable force to defend property. However, she may not use force that will cause death or serious bodily harm. Of course, if the invasion of property also entails a serious threat of bodily harm to the owner, she may then invoke the defense of self-defense and use deadly force. Further, one may not use indirect deadly force such as a trap, spring gun, or a vicious dog when such force could not lawfully be directly used, for example, against a mere trespasser. Re-entry onto land is defense to intentional torts number 5. Common law privilege A. In former years, it was held that a person who has been tortiously dispossessed from her land by fraud or force could use reasonable force to regain possession if she acted promptly on discovering the dispossession. Note that this did not apply to a tenant merely overstaying her lease. And B, privilege abolished in most states. Most states today do not allow resort to self-help. One who has been wrongly excluded from possession of real property may bring an ejectment action or other summary procedure to recover possession. Hence, the owner who uses force to retake possession is liable for whatever injury she inflicts. The sixth defense is recapture of chattels. The seventh, privilege of arrest. 8, necessity, and 9, discipline. So under recapture of chattel, when is a defense available? The basic rule is the same as that for land, where another's possession began lawfully, for example, a conditional sale. One may use only peaceful means to recover the chattel. Force may be used to recapture a chattel only when in hot pursuit of one who has obtained possession wrongfully, for example, by theft. 1. Timely demand required. A demand to return the chattel must preclude the use of force unless the circumstances make it clear that the demand would be futile or dangerous. 2. Recovery only from wrongdoer. The recapture may only be from a tortfeasor or some third person who knows or should know that the chattels were tortiously obtained. If the chattels had come to rest in the hands of an innocent party, this will cut off the actor's privilege to use force to effect recapture. B. How much force may be used? Reasonable force, not including force sufficient to cause death or serious bodily harm, may be used to recapture chattel. And C. Entry upon land to remove chattel. On wrongdoer's land. 1. Where chattels are located on the land of the wrongdoer, the owner is privileged to enter upon the land and reclaim them at a reasonable time and in a reasonable manner. It is generally required that there be a demand for the return of the chattel before any such entry. 2. On land of innocent party. Similarly, when the chattels are on the land of an innocent party, the owner may enter and reclaim her chattel at a reasonable time and in a peaceful manner when the landowner has been given notice of the presence of the chattel and refuses to return it. In this case, the chattel owner will be liable for any actual damage caused by entry. 3rd, on land through owner's fault. Under entry upon land to remove chattel. So, if the chattels are on the land of another through the owner's fault, there is no privilege to enter upon the land. They may be recovered only through the legal process. And D. The shopkeeper's privilege. Shopkeepers may have a privilege to reasonably detain individuals whom they reasonably believe to be in possession of shoplifted goods. 7. Under defenses of intentional torts, depending on the facts of a particular case, one may have a privilege to make an arrest of a third person. A, B, and C. A. Invasion of land. B. Subsequent misconduct. And C. Mistake. Under invasion of land, A. The privilege of arrest carries with it the privilege to enter another's land for the purpose of effecting their arrest. And B. Subsequent misconduct. Although the arrest itself may be privileged, the actor may still be liable for subsequent misconduct, for example, failing to bring the arrested party before a magistrate and duly detain the party in jail, etc. And mistake, when he makes an arrest under the mistaken belief that it is privileged, may be liable for false imprisonment. Number 8, under defenses of intentional torts is necessity. A person may interfere with the real or personal property of another where the interference is reasonably and apparently necessary to avoid threatened injury from a natural or other force, and where the threatened injury is substantially more serious than the invasion that is undertaken to avert it. You have public necessity and private necessity herein. Where public necessity, A, the act is for public good, for example, shooting a rabid dog, the defense is absolute. And B, private necessity, where the act is solely to the benefit of a limited number of people For example, the actor ties up his boat to another's dock in a storm. The defense is qualified. For example, the actor must pay for any injury he causes. Exception: the defense is absolute if the act is to the benefit of the owner of the land. And 9. Discipline. A parent or teacher may use reasonable force in disciplining children, taking into account the age and sex of child and the seriousness of their behavior.